y'all go ahead. I'm gonna catch up. Go ahead. Hey, Pop, what are y'all two doing here?
We're looking for you. Why haven't you pick up your phone?
I don't know, man. I guess I just didn't hear it, Pop.
That used to always happen to me. That's why I keep on vibrate. Very sensitive thighs.
All that matters is that you're safe. So come on, man. We're going home.
Whoa, Pop. I'm not going home.
What?
No, man. I'm going down to the police station. Look, they didn't want to listen to us when we were peaceful, so we gonna make them listen now.
Oh, come on. Don't be stupid. Put the brick down, son. You're coming home.
Pop, I told you I'm not going home.
What?
Malcolm, please. Everybody's worried about you.
Dave.
Sorry. I'm gonna go call Gemma and tell her you're okay. She's been blowing up my thigh.
Malcolm, now, I told your mother that I was gonna find you and bring you home, and that's what I'm gonna do.
How can you tell me to quit now, Pop? Look, weren't you the one who said that you were proud of me for standing up, and now you want me to back down?
Look, son, I hear you.
Obviously you don't. Look, I saw my friend get beat down right in front of me, and I couldn't do a damn thing about it. I'm standing 5 feet away and I was helpless. You know, maybe if you would have been through something like that or been there, you would understand.
You think I don't understand? Boy, do you know how many times I've been there? How many times I've been pulled over saying I'm in the wrong neighborhood or questioned because I fit the description? I've been living this my whole life, Malcolm.
Then why aren't you angry, Pop?
I am angry. I'm angry every day. I'm angry every time another racist cop kills one of us out there, or every time the system fails us. It makes me want to burn it all down. But that's not the answer.
Well, then what is? Because they are not listening to us. So what the hell am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to use your head, Malcolm.
Come on, man.
You gotta fight smart. All right? You gotta organize. You gotta talk to your people. You gotta get them to listen. Look, they want you to fight with this. But you gotta fight with this. Because your actions, they got consequences that you may not come back from. And you can't help nobody if you dead or in jail. Give me the brick. Come on, son. Give me the brick.
Just don't know what else to do, Pop. What the hell am I supposed to do?
I know, man. I got you, man. I got you, boy. Look, I want you to keep that fire. But you're gonna lead the right fight.
I'm sorry, Pop, but
It's all right. It's all right. Come on, man. Let's get home to your mother.
whoa, exactly how worried is she?
Well, let's put it this way. Say goodbye to your hairline.
Today on Writers, Chats, and Friends with host, author, broadcaster Monica Brinkman, author, psychologist Kenneth Wing, and author Celeste Duckworth. Our guest is a criminal lawyer and now an author, Todd L. Bequette. He practices in Oakland, California, and his debut novel is Lookin, which weaves his expertise from the courtroom into the pages of a thrilling mystery. His writing is inspired by the time in the courtroom where he has tried over 20 murder cases. I'm glad to welcome Todd Bequette to our program today. Welcome, Todd.
Hi, TL.
Hi, TL.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for that introduction.
Well,
Before we started the show, we were just catching up with one another, and lo and behold, Monica has been called for jury duty, and it has been delayed now, I believe, till a little while, a couple months, but she has been called, which of course got us all talking about serving on juries. and stuff like that. And jury selection actually is one of the topics that you get into a little bit in your novel, Good Lookin'. So what do you, as a trial attorney, what do you look for in jurors?
If I've learned anything over the past 20 years, I think it's that it is nearly impossible in jury selection to predict which jurors are going to be open-minded and fair. For that reason, most of the time, I think attorneys try to spend their time questioning the jurors, simply trying to persuade them about their case. What I have noticed, and this is an unfortunate trend, is that I practice in Oakland, where a great many of my clients are African American, and there aren't many blacks on juries.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, so many times my client, who's sitting to my left, looks behind us at the prospective jurors and says, like, where am I? This is not Oakland. One reason for that is that usually the jury pool is selected from voter registration polls. And as we know, I think it's getting better, but a whole lot of minorities are disenfranchised and don't bother to register to vote. And so that's lately there's been a trend towards selecting jurors from DMV records. So things are getting a little bit better in that regard.
When they say that a jury appears, how can a minority accept like an all-white jury as a jury appears?
Right, and not only that, Monica, but oftentimes my clients are young, right, and it's hard enough for me to relate to them. And from a jurors who, so many of them are people that have the time to serve on juries and they're retired. Right. And so they're just from a completely different walk of life.
Different world. They're literally a different world.
Right.
The other part of it is equally true in a way, though, which is really kind of, let's say you're African American, Black American, and you're watching the news about a trial, or you're watching a reenactment of a trial or whatever, or maybe you read the newspapers about a trial, and you look at the description, and how can you accept the idea that this white guy who is being tried for, let's say, embezzlement from a federal program. Let's go all the way. And he is sitting there, and the jury is all white, middle class, retired, etc. And there's not a Black or Asian or Native American face to be seen on that panel. And again, it is, how can this be justice if I am not a peer? I am not part of the peer group.
Yeah, you're completely right, and the answer is there can't be. And not only is it unfair for the reasons we've discussed, but part of what makes America great, I think, I hate even saying that phrase, but is its diversity, right? I mean, it's a melting pot, and I think the best jurors take ideas from people from all different ethnicities and all different attitudes and all different experiences, and I think that's an important element of justice that sadly is not around a lot of the time.
Now, folks, I want to just point out to you, okay, this business about jury selection in Good Lookin' is like one chapter out of a whole novel. And you can see how much thinking it's gotten us doing. This is a novel that I really enjoyed because while it helped me interested in the storyline, it also raised some wonderful questions. And one of the other questions, just going off in a totally different direction, and we don't want to give you too many spoilers here, folks, so we're going to be very careful here to not do spoilers, because we want you to read this book. But one of the things, of course, and I looked in your bio and I see you have twins. How old are they?
They are 17.
17-year-olds, your twins.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so you've had experience raising them. Are they identical?
They are identical, yeah. And they play a pair of twins, as Ken points out, play a prominent part in the book. And I tried to draw on my experiences in raising them. And I think I've learned something about them and their sort of unique relationship. But I hasten to add that my twins would completely disagree with that. They're convinced that I'm just as clueless about them as ever.
Well, you know anything about your kid, right? Until we're not anymore. until suddenly, when the kid reaches about 25, we get smart. But, okay.
After they've had children, then they understand.
One of the things you discuss is these two twin boys are put into foster care, and their experience in foster care. Let's talk a little about that without too many spoilers, please. But it is brutal, and you know, I was wondering, how much work have you done with the foster care system? How many of your what percentage of your clients who have been accused of crime have gone through the foster system, you know, and all of that?
Yeah, the statistics, I don't have them at my fingertips, but it's really high. I mean, and it's, you know, the particular foster parent in the book is not a good person, and I don't mean to indicate that that's sort of representative of foster parents. I know there are plenty of them that provide a great service and do the right thing and in it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. But it's just not a great system, right? I mean, they're essentially paid parents, and I've seen tons and tons of abuses in the system, and I can't remember the last indigent juvenile that I represented that hadn't been at some point in the foster care system.
No.
I think we even talked about the foster care system when you're talking about all the abuse that takes place with different parents, and also there's a stereotype of who is the perfect foster parent. It usually turns out not. But one of the things here in Arizona that I learned is that, and it's probably the same with all foster care, when they turn 18, they're kicked out in the street. They are not given housing. They don't have a job, whatever. They are out kicked up the street to fend themselves. So with no skills, where do you expect them to go?
Crazy. You're just setting them up for failure.
The exception, of course, being the ones who, because they are available to be adopted and B, in a sense, willing to be adopted,
right,
then make it. And one of the things, and it's not a spoiler because it doesn't really play a part in the plot of the book, only in setting it up to happen, that the twins who are in foster care then are separated. And of course, one of the things they dreaded, this is a fascinating thing, and I imagine your twins would agree that you got that right, that were they separated from you and their mother, and they had to live on their own, that they would rather be together than going off in separate worlds.
Yes, Ken, I think even my snarky, sarcastic 17-year-old twins would have to agree with that. So, yeah.
And so, and these two boys, they don't want to be separated. And then they are. We won't go into how and why, folks. Read the book. Again, it's called Good Lookin', a Joe Turner mystery. And it's by, I guess today, T L Bequette. Notice.
Could you show the book?
Could you show the cover there?
We'd love to see the cover of it.
Yeah, there you go. Because I have
That's great.
My copy is on Kindle. So
TL, speaking of the foster system, I worked in a doctor's office before I moved, and we had people come in who were foster parents. And what they came to the doctor for were drugs to control the children. And every one of the children would get these drugs. They called it acting up. They were being normal kids, and they're filling them all with these drugs to control them and getting paid for it. Isn't there a way to look into this type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, the dentist and the doctor should be mandatory reporters if there are, and that certainly qualifies as abuse in my book.
Well, the thing is, these doctors are making money off of them, and they're giving them drugs, so they're getting kickbacks or dinners or lunches from, the pharmaceutical companies. It's like this vicious circle.
Right, it is.
And I just thought, man, this needs to be looked into. These poor children, they're young, they're little kids, and you're filling them up with all these drugs.
It's more insidious than that, though, Monica, because what actually happens is, you see, nobody's responsible because the foster parent says the kid's acting up. Then the school, especially if the kid is from a minority, especially if they're Black, the way the kids are described by teachers differs. You're a white kid who comes from a normal family in the sense that, they're living with their parents, etc., who's running around the room, is inquisitive, full of spunk, energetic. And the Black kid who dares to get out of his seat is disruptive.
That's exactly how they treated these children. Now, these were white children.
Okay, but as soon as the labeling is being done all around the circle, you see, there is no abuse because the doctor can say, well, you see, he's disruptive in school, and I had that to go on. I have the school. I did check. I made sure I got the education, the school psychologist report. It's right here.
Well, they wonder why they go on to do drugs. You're feeding them to them their entire life.
My question is, why do the few not do drugs? And that's a very interesting thing. That, again, talking about your book, TL. That one of the kids ends up using drugs, the other one ends up not using drugs. And folks, I got to tell you at this point, I'm not going to do the spoiler. I'm going to just say, you really want to read that twist because that was very clever, man.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to just also let people know the term "good looking" that you have in your book, it does have a meaning on the street. And we were talking about snitch culture sometime when we were, first interviewed you. So tell the audience what good looking means.
Sure. So good looking is short for the street term good looking out. And I've always thought it was just this really a great concise phrase that means so much, right? It means essentially thanks for looking out for the well-being of me. Thanks, good looking out, good looking. Mm-hmm. And in certain situations in the street, that can be, thank you for saving my life. Thank you for telling me that my rival gang member was about to shoot me. Whenever one of my clients says good looking to me, that's the highest compliment I can get.
That's good to know. I never knew.
And there's more of that slang in the book. You pick up more of it, folks. You use it nicely. You work it in. to the book, and your characters speak in voice. You know, and they are all, you stay true to the voices of the characters, and they vary. You have this fidgety DA, assistant DA, whose voice is actually, you know, Elijah going like this with his pen, you know, whack, whack, whack on the table and getting himself all agitated. And you have a judge. Let's talk about the judge, because again, we want to talk about the law. We're using your book as a launching pad to talk about the law. Talk about this judge, would you, TL?
Sure. So Judge Ludlow somehow made his way to the bench. And I should say that he is not representative of any one particular judge in my career. But there are judges that through political connections or what have you become judges. They're appointed by the governor in California, or they can run for office as well. Anyway, this judge is just a complete putz, and he's not smart. He hides his ignorance of the law with bluster, and generally makes life miserable for both attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is fascinating because, again, here he is presiding over a murder trial. A young man's life hangs in the balance, and a young black man's life hangs in the balance. He's been accused of a murder, and this judge is more concerned about taking time off, having time to play golf, and doing God knows whatever else, because it seems like every day he's got a reason why the next day should be short or the next day should be canceled. And, you know, I'm not an attorney, but as a psychologist in New York, I would go to court often, and I was blown away by how often the people that were sitting up there on that throne, if you will, really had feet of clay. They seldom concern themselves even with what the case is. And at one point you have this judge, he's asleep, literally.
Oh my word.
And the thing that really I think is fascinating, and this is maybe perhaps something you're saying, and I was wondering if you were making this as a point, that even though the judge is totally incompetent, and even though the attorneys certainly have their foibles and failings, in the end, the truth comes out. And I was wondering if that was a political statement on your part, or just a hope, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that usually that happens, right? Despite the foibles, as you say, of all the different parties. Usually, I mean, I think the jury system, it has its flaws, but I do think it's the best system in the world. And I think the truth has a way of surfacing, and I think usually jurors get it right. Certainly that's not always the case, right? There have been plenty of people incarcerated for years and years and years, and then we find out later that they were innocent. So it's not a perfect system.
Yeah.
But
TL, I had a question, and it bothers me. Okay, let's say, hypothetically, you're a drug user, and the seller of the drugs is over your house. Someone else shows up that you've done business with before, and he gets angry that you're dealing with this other person. Now, a fight ensues, and he kills the other dealer. Now, he has a gun to your head. saying, you're going to help me clean this up and get rid of this body, or you're going to be next. Okay. This drug dealer gives a bunch of names out and such. The one that did the actual murder. So he either gets off on probation or a very low sentence. And the person that is put to trial is this person who had the gun held to his head and told you either go with me or you're next. But he's the one getting charged for murder because he was an accessory. It doesn't make sense to me. What would any person do under those circumstances?
Right, and the law actually provides for that. You can't be, if there's a gun to your head and you can prove that, and that's the reason why you undertook an action, then that's a complete defense. So he would be found not guilty. The guy who did the actual shooting is not going to get probation. He's going to get life in prison, again, if it's proven that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So
of course, he can make a plea deal. I think what Monica was suggesting is that the bad guy does a plea bargain, where he gives up names, and I think we're all very aware.
Got it. I missed that part of it. Sorry, Monica.
Well, I guess the reason I asked is I actually was a juror under those circumstances, and this man did get sent to prison. He was not given an opportunity. And there were all kinds of witnesses that said, yeah, he had to go do this. He had to drive the car with the body and with this guy next to him with a gun. And this man still got sent to prison. Mm. And I think that's happening. If it happened in that instance, I'm sure it's happening in other places.
Monica,
right. I mean, one thing that's...
Can I ask you a question, Monica? You were on the jury. Why did you vote to convict?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
The law told me to.
Mm-hmm.
And as a juror, I probably should have. But I did not think it warranted this guy getting life in prison. And that's what they were going after.
Mm. And what did happen?
The jury finally decided on lesser charge. We were allowed one more. I think it was manslaughter. I can't remember because it's been a lot of years. But to me, why this guy got anything, I just don't understand it. Because I think if that was me, I'd be following along too.
You got some insight into that?
Well, I mean, one of the things that you talked about can be a real problem, and that is if a prosecution bases their case on the testimony of someone who is getting something in return, like the gentleman you talked about.
Yes.
And that is, that puts the jury in a really difficult position, right?
It was hard.
They're either going to believe this person who is either telling the truth to curry favor with the prosecution and reduce the sentence, or they're lying to do it, right? And I would, in the research that I've done about people who have been wrongly convicted, it's usually because the jury believed one of those characters, right? It's usually because they believe the guy who's getting a lesser sentence and throwing his buddy under the bus. And so those are, that happens all the time, and that's, it's
sad.
And it puts the jury in a very difficult position, I think.
And there are so many things that you don't find out until after the verdict has been proclaimed, because that's when you get a chance to talk to the actual attorneys to find out things that they weren't allowed to tell you.
Right. And one of the things that's frustrating to me as a defense attorney is that oftentimes, the jurors never know. There's a rule specific to this. They're never allowed to know what the punishments are, right? Because logically that's sort of irrelevant to the decision of whether or not someone is guilty or innocent. And there are a lot of crimes in California that the punishments are just really, in my way of thinking, are just out of control. And the punishments have been raised over the years essentially because no politician is going to run on the "I'm soft on crime" platform, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Consequently, new legislation is drafted every year that raises the punishments for crimes. For example, I had a case where the client was he was charged with shooting into an inhabited dwelling, essentially a drive-by shooting into a house. No one was hit by his bullets, and it's obviously that's a very serious crime. I'm not saying it's not, but that combined with the gang enhancement got him life in prison. And when the jury pronounced the verdict, and afterwards, like Monica, like you probably learned about the punishment for this poor guy afterwards, they were just they were appalled that they had played a part in sending this guy to prison for the rest of his life.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask about, because I know you're very passionate about the criminal justice system and justice reform. What are your thoughts on Kamala Harris now starting to go out and talk about reform? And one of the issues I had a conversation with some friends yesterday. One of the issues is that we feel that Black Americans feel that, again, a lot of the justice reform is being put on the back burner when it comes to African Americans, rather coming to the forefront and make more stride, considering the things that we've done in the past few months. I don't believe you can totally dismantle the justice system and then what you really should do. It needs to be dismantled and reconfigured or whatever. I mean, it's still pretty much following the foundation that it was founded on. So what are your thoughts on that? Because it really is in the Black community, it really is a huge issue now. When the Asian Americans start, having more attacks and not putting that down, but just the fact that it was kind of like, oh, we found something else to put in the forefront because we really don't want to deal with the Black American issue. And that's how we feel now.
Yeah.
Well, I can see why. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's a mess. I mean, if I had my druthers, the system would be dismantled, right? I mean, we're just absolutely warehousing generations of African Americans. I mean, so many of my clients are, when I meet their wives, right? Their wives are often, good, proud, educated African American women, and their spouses are in prison or in jail. And it's just I'm happy to hear that Kamala Harris is coming to the fore and speaking about that. But it is the task of fixing this is just Herculean, right? I mean, like I said before, the first time you put a measure on the ballot to, let's say we're going to reduce the amount of years that someone serves for a crime. That's going to be a very tough sell for everyone. But you have to start somewhere. So
well, it's interesting you say that, because actually at this point in time in this country, we are having that happen, and it's not about Black people, of course. It's about white people, and it's got to do with marijuana. As states are legalizing weed, they are now dealing with all of these people who have been imprisoned for having weed, and a lot of them are white. If they were all Black, if it was not that it isn't racially biased.
Mhm.
We're all black. I don't think you'd be seeing this movement, but we are seeing a movement for the first time where people are saying, well, maybe they should, if we know now that it really isn't such a bad thing, maybe we should get rid of that conviction and give them back their rights. Or maybe we should let them out of prison. If they're in prison for doing something last week that next week is going to be legal, maybe we shouldn't be punishing them so much for last week.
Mhm.
Right.
And so maybe
That makes so much sense.
well, since when does the law make sense?
Yeah.
TL, would you like to defend the concept that the law makes sense?
Politely declined. Thank you very much.
So, folks, we've been talking with T L Bequette. And by the way, I'm going to spell your last name, TL, because folks, if you go looking on Amazon for his book, it isn't spelled the way you think. So I'm going to spell it. It's Bequette. It's pronounced Beckett. And the name of the book is Good Lookin, a Joe Turner mystery. Now, since it's a Joe Turner mystery and it's your first novel, I'm going to guess that you already have another book on the ways.
You're exactly right. It is.
And one of the
Turner in the hopper. So yeah.
One of the things, by the way, I enjoyed, usually when I know it's going to be a book in a series, one of the things that really disappoints me is that the author feels compelled to give me the entire backstory of that character, and you have avoided that trap. We're getting to know Joe Turner, and I like him. He's a bit of an idiot in some ways, particularly when it comes to his love life. He's a bit lucky in his love life. And by the way, folks, that's another side of the story, and you're going to enjoy getting to know this character. But I want him to evolve in my connection. So when I read the next one, and I am looking forward to reading the next one, I'm going to learn more about him and more about his backstory, I assume, and more about his friend Chuck. And this is an evolving. It's a kind of story that I like because it's evolving. By the way, it's also a darn good mystery. It isn't like the Lady Burr played the what's the character I'm thinking of?
Perry Mason?
Perry Mason.
I'm aging myself.
Mason ending where, oh, I did it. But it is a really good surprise twist ending where the perpetrator is revealed. And by the time you get to that perpetrator at the end of this book, you're going to really, really have enjoyed reading it. And then just to add, there's another twist at the end that is going to really make you go, woo. And,
right?
So again, it's called Good Lookin, a Joe Turner mystery. And it's by our guest today, T L Bequette. And Monica is going to have a link on the description of the show, so you can go right over there and get to his website. And also you can get right to his Amazon page where you can buy a copy. And you can either get it in print or you can get it on Kindle. And it's a really good read.
Okay.
Well,
I want to. Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I read it, and it was really like Ken said. When you get to the end, that end is like it just blows your mind. You're like,
it's worth it all.
It's really worth it. Yeah, it's really well written. Really worth it.
Well, I tell you, TL, with both Ken and Celeste recommending this book, that means a lot to me because I know how they both are. And they're very selective in what they praise. So I know I'm going to be getting that.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how great that makes me feel listening to Celeste and Ken describing their reactions to the different twists and turns of the book. That's sort of what I had in mind when I wrote it. So
Great.
So thanks.
Now,
Yeah,
good question. TL, we'd love to have you come back, not just when your next book comes out, but maybe some other time to talk more about criminal justice, especially as events hopefully unfold in this country, and maybe some, you could be one of our many talking heads, as it were.
I'd love to do that. Sure. I'll be a talking head.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Well,
Well, I
folks,
have one.
go
Can I
ahead.
have one more question? Because I always ask my professional friends that I know, and you are a criminal defense lawyer, so I'm gonna ask you this. When you first started defending murderers and being in the criminal justice system, how did you deal with the stress? How did you go home without taking that with you? And that's a question I ask a lot of people that deal with people in a situation like you do. So when you first started, now I'm saying now as a writer, you probably can write it off, but in the beginning, how did you throw that off from you to be able to get up and go back to work and say, okay, here we go, day 2, or, whatever?
That's a great question. And the answer is I didn't do it very well when I started. Mm-hmm. When I started my practice way back when, I just had an office that I could only use part of the time, right? And so I spent a lot of my time at home, and I didn't have the discipline to work at home. I'd end up in my sweatpants eating cereal on the couch.
Pet the cat,
And then you're right. Once once the cases got more serious that I was handling, mm-hmm. It became an issue not to think about them sort of all the time. I think when I'm in trial, and a young man or young woman's sort of life is in my hands in a murder case, I kind of live it and it never goes away. Mm-hmm. But when I'm not in trial, at least I've just sort of learned over the years to, when I shut the office door, then everything stays there, and I go home and, like you said, right now.
Right.
You did everything you could, to defend that person and to make it right. So that's all anybody can expect from you.
Well, I've known a few lawyers, and they have different coping strategies, just as different radio show hosts have different coping, and different psychologists have different. So I met some who drank, some who ate, some who became exercise crazed, some who really didn't, and basically went into kind of a meltdown. You have the strategies you have in life. The question you're asking, I think it's interesting, because we could be asking a neurosurgeon, we could be asking a reporter, we could be asking a police officer, especially an undercover police officer. We certainly could be asking an attorney. One of the things that really, I think there is a divide between those people among us who take on careers where we are directly affecting and impacting the lives of others, and those careers in which we are not directly impacting the lives of others. I'm not suggesting that being a plumber or an auto mechanic doesn't matter. They matter very much. But you're not, if somebody's sink stops up again, it isn't a matter of what's going to happen to their whole lives.
Yeah.
And
a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. And people who have a lot of responsibility, they better develop coping mechanisms, which, by the way, is one of the reasons that we all hear the stories about the operation and the doctor, the surgeon is telling jokes. And I have a friend who's an anesthesiologist, and he says to me, and his specialty is working in neurosurgery now. the anesthesiologist and from neurosurgeon, and he says, passing the gas is not the big responsibility. He says 99.99% of the time it's a piece of cake. There's only once in a great while that there's a crisis that I have to do something different. My job is telling jokes. So to keep the stress for the other people in the room down.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
By the way, they play music too.
Right.
And that's another stress reducer. Well, anyway, TL, thanks so much for joining us today, and we will be looking forward to having you back, and I am looking forward to reading the sequel to Good Lookin'.
Thanks, Kenneth, and thanks, Celeste and Monica, very much. It's my pleasure.
Great.
Okay. Well, folks, get the book. You've heard how good it is, and I think this is a topic that we all can embrace at this time. Okay, we got a little something for you right now. Thank you so much.
Bye, Theo. Have a great one.
Thanks again.
Mhm.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Here you go.
You taught me to believe in myself. The dreams do come true. Little boys wanna be like their heroes. I always wanna be just like you. Whenever I said I couldn't, you always told me that I can. You knew everything I needed to grow up to be a man. Great man untitled, glory and fame. Who was that masked man? What was his name? What do you call a man? I called him my hero, I called him my dad. It's hard to love something and not watch it fly away. You taught me so much, you knew I'd be okay. Little boys grow older, now I have a family of my own. And I'll keep trying to be like the greatest man I've ever known. Great man untitled, glory and fame. Who was that masked man? What was his name? What do you call a man who gave you all he had? I called him my hero, I called him my dad.